going back to Kateri's example, if you are in a home where you don't have both of your parents there, or you don't have your guardians, whoever they are, if they're not there raising you, understand you might not have the best lived examples to know how to model or measure your relationships off of, or who you choose to engage with, right?
Right.
That matters, because in the future, when you're trying to vet people, when you're trying to decide who you want to really give an opportunity to, it just means you might make some early mistakes, and it's not necessarily because you're a bad person or you're a bad judge of character. You just didn't have the best examples to look up to, so you're going to
Right.
have to learn, like a lot of us do, through some heartache, through some hardship. And it's unfortunate, but this is reality, right?
It's very true. Mhm.
But piggybacking on that idea, especially because you had the extended family in the household, I want to talk a little bit about the family dynamic between all of you. So you mentioned you had a sister. You obviously grew up with both your grandparents before your grandfather had passed, and then
Mhm.
you had your parents in the household. So what was that dynamic like with all those people in the house?
It was definitely I wouldn't say hectic, but I think there was always something going on, something to celebrate or just coming home from school and being able to talk to my parents and my grandparents, my sister, like there was always someone to engage with. I never really
Yeah,
had like this alone time. I mean, I could have it if I wanted to, go to my room. I could have it there, but in the living room, someone was always there in the kitchen, like all of us eating together. I grew up with a lot of that. So the dynamic I think was great. There was a
mhm,
point, overall, I think, like I said, my childhood, my youth was great, but my dad fell into, drug addiction, unfortunately, at one
mm,
point, and it all it took was him being at work one day and someone offered him something, and the guy said, "Oh, it's fine, just try this out." And sure enough, he fell into this addiction. So my grandparents, really stepped up to the plate. Everyone kind of knew something was going on, but no one
yeah,
wanted to admit, you know, he might be on drugs. But just think there was a shift. But I can't say that it really affected me. And that's kind of amazing to say because I did have my mom who stepped up and became both parents during those few years, and my
yeah.
grandparents who were right there for us, when this happened. So yeah, everything was really joyous. But of course, like there is no perfect dynamic, no perfect family. I want to say we're close. I have to say, yeah, because I just, you know, it's, I don't want to compare. I really try not to compare, but I do count my blessings. Like
Sure.
I've had so much support, and my dad who turned his life around, like that's a whole nother story. But he came around, and I think it's also because he had the support and the love of his family, and
Mm,
he wanted to set the example to us because he's the one who actually admitted to my sister and I. He sat us down one day and told us, "Look, I've been dealing with this," and
yeah.
that was hard to accept. But like I said, I kind of knew some stuff was going on. I was also in high school at the time,
Mm,
and that's kind of a point where you're not really like, I'm trying to go out with friends. So I guess that's why it also didn't really have this major negative impact on me. But there
makes
was
sense.
nights where I could see, from my bedroom, his bathroom window, I could see it on like all night. And I was like, what's he doing in there? And then he always had like clear skin, and then you start seeing like little scabs on his face. So, and I didn't want to question because I did feel like during that time he had a little bit more of a temper. And I think it's
Yeah.
because he knew he was hiding something. He didn't want to be asked about it. But
Okay.
to see him come out of that darkness was just so impactful. And I know that witnessing that journey, I know we can overcome a lot, like more than we think we can,
Yeah.
so that was really, really a trying time. But I've never seen my dad more inspired than he is now, and one of the things too in our household is like faith. Faith has always played a big role in my life. And I want to say my mom prayed him out of that time,
Mm,
honestly, and my grandparents. Like my grandma's very devoted, everyday prayers, my mom to mass every day. And she said it during that time, like it was really hard, but I was in mass all the time when you guys were at school. And there was a point where I thought I was going to reach my breaking point. I had my sisters telling me, like, we got you. If you need to leave him, like, we're going to support you. But my mom said this, and it'll always stick with me. And I think, like you said, it kind of plays a part in how I see, relationships. And right now, my fiance and stuff is I couldn't leave your dad because I saw him as a soldier wounded in battle who I couldn't leave alone.
mm.
And that just really stuck
Deep.
with me. Yeah, and that'll always stick with me. So I just feel like it's a testament to when I say sacrifice like that. She sacrificed that time, like
Yeah.
so a little bit more about my background in that, you know.
No, sure, sure. And again, I appreciate all the vulnerability. I mean, I don't have that lived experience within my family, but I don't I think I've talked about this before in a previous episode. I used to work at a substance abuse facility when I was in grad school, and it was primarily opiate addiction. So most of the people had came, or a lot of them, I shouldn't say most, a lot of them had came in initially struggling with prescribed opiates, right?
Mm,
So the hydrocodone, the roxycodone, hydromorphone, all these different things, right? Maybe they had an accident, maybe they fell off a ladder, whatever the situation may have been, started off prescribed by a doctor. But then over time, they ended up developing a dependency, like a lot of people did, because people were not, or medical professionals were not necessarily emphasizing the risk of dependency for those substances. And then naturally over time, because those medicines get very expensive, people started resorting to heroin.
mm,
And then in the midst of that, you know, a lot of the other clients I had at that time were battling with marijuana, methamphetamine, cocaine, all these different alcohol addiction. And so I learned a lot about what that experience is like, and not only how it plays on the families, because I saw, you know, people who weren't able, like mothers who weren't able to keep their kids anymore because the drugs had pretty much dominated their life.
yeah.
You see people in and out of the criminal justice system, excuse me. And the hard part for me was when you listen to the people's stories and they're talking about how much they would compromise in order just to get that high. And it's not because necessarily they're chasing it because they don't value the other things that are important to them, like their family, their relationships, their career, whatever those things are. They're just literally kind of held in a chokehold. And
Yes.
so it's what makes, this isn't like a PSA for drugs, but it's just something to think about, you know?
Right. Right.
It's a very insidious path that people end up on, where even when they want to break away, sometimes it's really hard for them to, not because they don't want to, but just because the nature of what it is. And then you talked about the support. Shout out to your mom, you know,
Right.
because what happens, what I learned, because again, I haven't had this lived experience, I don't know firsthand. What I learned from them was a lot of them, because of the cycle that they've gone through time and time again, parents, loved ones, friends, they end up walking away for their
Ex-
own peace, because they're like, hey, I can't keep going on this ride with you because you are doing these things that I can't co-sign at all. And it seems like all this help I'm trying to provide, in some cases you're not trying to take, or it appears that you're not trying to take it. And so I'm kind of at my wits end with you. I have to pull back from my own sanity and my own peace of mind, so those people who still need that help may end up losing that support that they need also along that journey, which makes it much harder for them. It just compounds the fact that they might not be able to get out. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate the story, because in your case, it seems like your father did still have a good amount of support despite whatever he was going through. And that's
Yes.
awesome, because I know a lot of cases, what I had to witness, that wasn't always that.
Right. And you're right. And I see a lot of that too. And I hear so many stories. That's why I consider it such a big blessing. And I'm going to use that word a lot because I do feel very highly blessed. And, you know, I see the person my dad has become. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, wow, you can never believe that this man was ever addicted to drugs at one point, you know? And it's just, um, like you said, I do commend my mom for that. And I hope to be, you know, half the person that she is because she's an incredible person.
Yeah.
If she can deal with something like that and overcome it, then I feel like I can be put up to the test too in relationships and kind of be able to work through anything. You know what I mean? I would
Sure.
hope at least.
No, absolutely. And I mean, and that's why I asked the question, because to kind of further build on this idea we're talking about, I always talk about environment. Okay, as a therapist, when I'm trying to get to know somebody and I'm trying to better understand why maybe they're in some of the situations that they're in, I like to start at their upbringing.
Right.
And that's a natural part. Even like when you go to see a doctor, you know, they take a history. The reason why I think about that is because a lot of our reality, a lot of our beliefs, a lot of our values, our morality is shaped based on who was in that household and what did they impress upon you. Either, and I say impress, not necessarily teach, because some things they may verbally teach you and some things they may teach you through their actions by modeling sometimes inappropriate behavior.
Definitely.
So I say impress because you might be just going through your day to day, like, oh, okay, you know, this is just kind of how it is. Everybody has a different definition of normal. And because of that, sometimes there's things that we learn that are fundamentally dysfunctional. And so the purpose of us talking about these things and trying to own and understand these things is so we can try to grow beyond them and be better. So you sharing your story about your father and what you witnessed with him, that probably demonstrated, I'm not going to ever put words in your mouth, but it might have demonstrated a level of resiliency, the ability to bounce back, having gone through such a dark place, but also maybe needing that support from loved ones to be there with you, to walk in that journey with you. And again, everybody doesn't get that,
Right.
but you got a good example of that. And I think that's great because that probably is going to help maybe condition you a bit more when it's your turn to walk that journey with your partner, and then new challenges will be thrown your way. You probably would be less likely, not entirely, but less likely to quit. But you, but
1000%.
but you tell me. Maybe I'm just making
No,
something
no,
up.
that you couldn't be more right. It's absolutely true. And now that I'm about to, I'm recently engaged, and now that I'm about to embark on this journey, I know my parents have modeled what a true relationship is,
Mm,
filled with love, but also the dark times. When you commit to marriage, you
yeah,
say in the good and the bad, and I've seen both sides, and
yeah,
I've seen the way that they've stood there for each other. Um, in those very dark moments. So I would
absolutely.
like to say that yes, I'm gonna take a lot of the tools I've learned from them and apply it to my own marriage one day. Um, and hopefully I'm as fortunate to be married for as many years as they've been, because I know they've put in the work. When you hear that relationships are work, that marriages work, it couldn't be more true. And I think that's why the dating is so fun, and I'm excited for marriage, but at the same time I'm scared. Because dating has been so fun. We've done so much. All these responsibilities and all these other factors you have to consider aren't really there when you're dating.
Oh
When you
yeah.
go into marriage, everything's gonna change. Like, I had someone joke with me, "Run," and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh."
No, 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 no.
Right.
No, what I would say, and I'm glad again you have a good example. And let me make a note here because I think this is important for us to consider. So going back to Kateri's example, if you are in a home where you don't have both of your parents there, or you don't have your guardians, whoever they are, if they're not there raising you, understand you might not have the best lived examples to know how to model or measure your relationships off of, or who you choose to engage with, right?
Right.
That matters because in the future, when you're trying to vet people, when you're trying to decide who you want to really give an opportunity to, it just means you might make some early mistakes, and it's not necessarily because you're a bad person or you're a bad judge of character. You just didn't have the best examples to look up to. So you're going to
Right.
have to learn, like a lot of us do, through some heartache, through some hardship. And it's unfortunate, but this is reality, right?